So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so therefore, as a very quick recap, we began by discussing the importance of good character and the relevance it has for us in our lives, in our deen, in bringing us close to Allah and close to our Prophet sallam. And that this has a consequential effect on so many things, and this is why, of course, Ibn Qayyim said, "Ad-din kullu khuluq." The whole deen is good character. فَمَنْ زَادَ عَلَيْكَ فِي الْخُلُقِ زَادَ عَلَيْكَ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever therefore excels you in good character has excelled you in the deen. It is therefore of prime importance for all of us to understand ways in which we can improve upon our inner disposition. Surah Al-Insan Al-Batina, صِفَةٌ ثَابِتَةٌ فِي النَّفْسِ فِطْرِيَّةٌ أو مُكْتَسَبٌ. And of course we spoke about the ways in which these traits are acquired, and also our parents and our environment, surroundings, schools, society has a bearing on this within us. We spoke about many things, so I will not do a recap of the things that we spoke about because of time constraint, but what we spoke about before we broke was the 9th point, which is based upon a hadith in which our Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ala akhbirukum biman yahram ala an-nar." Should I tell you about the one upon whom hell is forbidden? And then the Prophet of Allah said, "Ala kulli qareebin hayyin sahlin," upon every mild, polite and accessible person. And so we spoke about the importance of being compassionate, being soft, the bearing it has for us in our self-esteem, our mental health, and also the goodness of a familial home with you and your wife and children and so on and so forth. Now we will continue, inshallah, to our 10th point. And this is about the relevance of family and parents. You see, we already discussed a hadith in which our Prophet said, أَكْمَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا وَخِيَارُكُمْ خِيَارُكُمْ لِنِسَائِهِمْ. The most complete in iman out of all of you are those who have the best character, and the best of you are those who are best to their women. But of course we don't live only with women, we live with other members of our family too, and each of whom have a right upon us and we have rights towards them. I want to kind of use one hadith as a base, and this is the hadith in which Sahaba, they said, Ya Rasulullah, Ayyun nasi ahabbu ila Allah ta'ala. They asked, which people are the most beloved people to Allah? And the Prophet of Allah then said, Ahabbu nasi ila Allah anfa'uhum linnas. The most beloved people to Allah are those who bring the most benefit to people. Therefore, being beneficial to people is in many ways and forms. One can be of benefit to people. The fact that you are accessible and you are mild and you are polite, of course, is going to bring benefit to people because you will not be a nuisance and inconvenience to them. Isa alayhi salam, in the first instance, he says, وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْنِي جَبَّارًا شَقِيًّا. Allah did not make me overbearing and wretched towards my mother. That's bringing a benefit, of course, in the life of his mother. And likewise with Yahya alayhi salam, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to our parents, our mother and father, in the domain in which we live on earth, there is nobody who you are more duty bound towards in a living sense than your mother and your father. In fact, the Prophet of Allah said, أَحَقُّ النَّاسِ, that the most deserving people, the man said, Man أَحَقُّ النَّاسِ بِحُسْنِ صَحَابَتِي, who is most deserving of my good, excellent companionship. Notice, of course, in this narration, it's husni from ihsan, who is most deserving of my excellent companionship. It's not just about love. Maybe this is a mistranslation sometimes. It's not just about, it's about who is most deserving that I befriend and I accompany in life. And then the Prophet of Allah says, Ummuk, your mother. Thumma man, then who? Your mother, then who? Then your mother again. And then who? Then your father. So it's about living with, as opposed to seeing this in a passive sense that you're only seeing your mother as an entity and you're commanded to be good to your mother in a passive sense, but this is more active as opposed to passive. Actively involved. Allah in the Quran says, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. Envelop the wings of your mercy around them. That's an active response. That's an active undertaking, not a passive one. Envelop the wings of your mercy around them and say, my Lord, have mercy on them as they tended to me when I was small, when I was young. Look at a beautiful example of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. You know, Abu Hurairah's mother did not become Muslim instantly when he called her to Allah. And so Abu Hurairah went and found the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, make dua for my mother so she could become Muslim. And the Prophet at that moment raised his hands to Allah and said, Allah Mahdi Abu Hurairah. Oh Allah, guide the mother of Abu Hurairah. By the time he went back home, she had become Muslim. She had embraced Islam. Now we know that from a narration that when both of them would give salam to one another, the mother would say to the son, or the son would say, to the mother, Assalamu alayki ya ummata wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rahimakillah kama rabbaytani saghira. Allah, peace be upon you and the mercy of Allah upon you, my dear mother, and Allah's blessing upon you, my dear mother. May Allah have mercy on you because of how you looked after me when I was small. And she would say in response, Wa alayka as-salam ya bunayya wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, rahimakallah kama barartani kabira. And salam upon you and Allah's mercy and blessings. May Allah have mercy on you because of how you're being pious to me now that I'm older. And so it's reciprocal and it's beautiful. Right? That this is the way that a son would address the father, the mother and the mother would address the son, conveying Allah's blessings on each. To be dutiful to one's mother is from the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the most beloved actions to Allah. Look at example, I think it was Abdullah ibn Umar, the man who came to him and said, I've murdered somebody, I've killed someone, and can Allah forgive me? And this is not to take lightly, of course, the great sin in murder, of course, detrimental sin of murder. But the man said that. And then the man, Ibn Umar says, is your mother alive? He asked him the question, is your mother alive? And the man said, no. Ibn Umar said, just go away from us, away from us, and ask Allah for forgiveness and away from us, And then the people around Ibn Umar, they asked, why did you ask about the man's mother? What has that got to do with anything? He just done a crime, murder. And Ibn Umar says, by Allah, I don't know of a good deed that might potentially forgive him than his goodness to his mother. So it shows therefore the importance of the mother in Islam. Ummuk, your mother. And there's so much more to say, but because of time I will not delve more into this. And then also your father, of course. There is a narration of that young boy who, the Prophet the young boy had a father, and the father used to take some of the boy's money to finance the family. Like his sister was poor and needed money, and the father would take some of the boy's money and send it to his family. And the boy became very upset. And so he went and said, Ya Rasulullah, this my father is taking my money, And then the Prophet said, go and bring your father then. Bring your father to me. And on the way, the man composed a poem and is reading and reciting the poem to himself. And in the poem he's saying, when the child was born, we adored him, loved him, clothed him, fed him, taught him. And as he grew older, we had hopes for him and dreams for him. And we would spend on him and try to fulfill those dreams for him. And then as he got older still, he gets healthy, and it was a source of delight for us in our eyes. And he's saying all of this. But now he's saying, but then he gets older and he becomes arrogant. And he refuses. And Allah in the Quran says, كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطَّغَى أَرَّآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. Man transgresses the limits when he sees himself independent, self-sufficient. He's saying all this. Jibreel came and he said to Prophet when the man approaches you, ask him what he was reading on the way to you. Ask him about the poem he was reading on the way to you. So when the man came, the boy and the father were there, the Prophet was there. And the Prophet said to the boy, what is the problem? And the boy said, this is my father, he's taking my money. Then he said to him, and what did you read? What did you say on the way here? And then the man said, I didn't want to say, Ya Rasulullah. And then the man recited the poem and the Prophet cried. And then the Prophet grabbed that boy and said, Anta wa malik li abik. Anta wa malik li abik. Anta wa malik li abik. You and your wealth belong to your father. You and your wealth belong to your father. Allah in the Quran says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قل ما أنفقتم من خير فللوالدين والأقربين واليتامى والمساكين يسألونك ماذا ينفقون. They ask what should they spend their money on. Allah says قل ما أنفقتم من خير. Whatever of good you spend, فللوالدين is for your parents. The first people you spend on are your parents. The best charity is a charity for the family. Can't be that let's take Eid as an example, or Ramadan even. If you live in your own home with your wife and your children, it can't be that you're only worrying about the expenditure, about the food you need to bring in for your wife and your children, and you forget, well, my parents also need food for the fasting in Ramadan season. Or Eid would come, and you're so eager to buy gifts for your children and buy gifts for your wife for Eid, and maybe your dad wanted a shirt, maybe your mom wanted something, shoes, scarf, anything. See? And so the first ones we should ask are the parents. The first one you should show your loyalty to, your love to, is your mother. And there is nothing that is comparable to that, to the love of your mother. And the mother, and you need your mother. I mean, I'm speaking about in a very, you in your life, and this is very important for your children to know also, you in your life need your mother. It's your mother's du'as for you, your father's du'as for you. When your mother in the night raises her hands to Allah, asking Allah to do good for you, it's Allah doing that on account of your mother's du'as or your father's du'as. So never ever disrespect your parents. Never speak in a manner or a way of speaking. This is kayfiyatul a'mal also, how you speak, isn't it? وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا. Allah in the Quran says, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِ قُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنزَغُ بَيْنَهُم. Tell my servants, قُلْ لِعِبَادِي, tell my servants to speak in a beautiful way, because shaitan wants to make friction between them. Haven't you seen sometimes, it's not about what you say, it's just how you say it. It's not about what you say. Maybe you're saying a good thing, but you're saying the good thing in the wrong way. Or maybe you're saying in a word of, you need to be disciplined, but you're saying it in an exaggerated way. A lot of this is focused on the way that we do things. Tell my servants to speak in a beautiful way, because shaitan wants to sow corruption between them. Notice again back to Yusuf alayhi salam. And by the way, I'll tell you something. Beautiful thing, Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah said, Ash-shuhur ithna ashar, mithla awlad Yaqub alayhi wa alayhi salam. The months are 12 like the 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam. Wa shahr Ramadan bayna shuhur ka Yusuf bayna ikhwatihi. An example of Ramadan with respect to the other 11 months is like Yusuf with regards to the 11 brothers. فكما أن يوسف أحب الأولاد إلى يعقوب فكذلك شهر رمضان أحب الشهور إلى علام الغيوب. And he said, just like Yusuf was the most beloved son to Yaqub, and like that Ramadan is the most beloved month to the knower of the unseen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But on this point about speaking correctly and about shaitan's influence, what did Yusuf say right at the end? By the way, what Yaqub said right at the beginning ties up. Yaqub said right at the beginning, the father, he said, لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيد لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين. Don't tell the dream you had to your brothers, because they're going to scheme against you. Indeed, shaitan is an open enemy to man. He did not say the root cause is the brothers. He said the root cause of the problem is shaitan. Now this is beautiful. If you have friction between you and your neighbor, you and your friend, you see, if you keep saying, you did this, and I did this, and you said this, and you said this, just say, you know what, we have a third party involved in this, called shaitan. And all he did is he made a mess between us. You see, once you say that, even between you and your wife, if you have a trouble with you and your wife, you say you apologize. You have to take responsibility. Even Yaqub said he said, "Bal sawwalat lakum anfusukum amra." So he showed them, you guys are also to blame. You've made something up yourself. But the point is to resolve the situation, identify the root cause. You say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." Shaitan is interfering with us. You see, now Yusuf said the same thing, alayhi salam, at the end. He said when he's on the throne, when they made sajda to him. This is a prostration of reverence, not worship, reverence. It's not allowed for us to prostrate to anyone illallah except Allah. And then he said to Allah, he thanked Allah. إِذْ أَخْرَجْنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. Allah took me out from the prison and took my parents out from the wilderness, from the desert, from the wilderness. مِن بَعْدِ after Shaitan had sowed corruption, friction between me and my brothers. Attributing again the problem to Shaitan, as opposed to saying my brothers were evil to me and this is why I end up in a mess. No. And so therefore, remember the importance of your parents. I was once heard one sheikh saying, he was saying that on TV, Arabic TV station, questions and answers about Islam. And so a man rang up and asked the sheikh, he said, "Ya sheikh, I want to tell you a situation, basically a problem between me and my wife and my mother, like in-laws. When in-laws become outlaws, like they say." He said to him, so basically my mother is living with me and my wife. He said, "Aid su'al." He said, "Repeat the question." He said, "Ya Shaykh, I'm telling you, my mom is living with me and my wife." He said, "Aid su'al." Repeat the question. He said, "I don't know if you can hear on the TV, I'm just telling you again, my mom is living with me and my wife." He said, "Aid su'al." Repeat the question. Now the man becomes angry. He says, "Come on." He said, "No, wrong." He says, "Your mother is not living with you two. You and your wife are living with your mother." So learn to ask the question properly. Right? Learn to ask the question properly first. It is not that your mother is subordinated, right? Living with you and your wife. No, you and your wife are subordinated living with your mother, who is the one that has the ascendancy and superiority, and you are subordinated. وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. Envelop the wings of your mercy over them and around them. So you can never have what you have with your mother with anybody else. And then your father, of course. So good character, therefore, with your parents means to give them the best of joy and to spend money on them and to make them feel very comfortable in their environment with you, and to accompany them and to help them and to be with them. All of these things are extremely important. Now, point number 11 is not about doing, it's about not doing. It's about kaful adha. It's about refraining from harming other people. You see, one could do good to people, be compassionate, be merciful, be kind, be loving. But there are times you have to not do things so that you don't harm other people, refraining from harming others. Sahaba, they said, "Ya Rasulullah, inna fulana taqum al-layl wa tasum al-nahar wa tasaddaq." A woman prays salah. Fulana taqum al-layl, she prays salah in the night prayers. And she fasts in the day. And she gives sadaqah. وَلَكِنْ تُؤْذِي جِيرَانُهَا بِلِسَانِهَا. But she harms her neighbors with her tongue. You know what the Prophet said? He said, "La khayra fiha, hiya min ahli an-nar." There is no goodness in her. She's from the people of the fire. And then they said, then there's fulana, tusalli al-maktuba. A woman prays her 5 daily prayers, obligatory prayers. وَتَصَدَّقْ بِأَثْوَارٍ. And she gives small amounts of charity. وَلَكِنْ لَا تُؤْذِي جِيرَانُهَا بِلِسَانِهَا. And she does not harm her neighbor with her tongue. And the Prophet said, هِيَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ, from the people of paradise. Can you see, therefore, on the scale of all of this, how crucial it is for us to have a good character? Because one could think, and this is where an imbalance could arise, that you could have so many good deeds and praying and fasting and zakat and hajj and everything, but it's an imbalance because you've not realized one was sanctity according to space or for some actions, but then what about that creation of Allah, the person, the people? The Prophet said to his companions, أَتَدْرُونَ مَا الْمُفْلِسِ, do you know who is the bankrupt one? And they said, الْمُفْلِسُ مِنْ أُمَّتِي مَنْ يَأْتِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ بِصَلَاةٍ وَصِيَامٍ وَزَكَاةٍ. The bankrupt one from my ummah is the one that comes on the day of judgment with praying and fasting and zakat. How would he be bankrupt? وَيَأْتِي قَدْ شَتَمَ هَذَا وَضَرَبَ هَذَا وَسَفَكَ دَمَ هَذَا وَأَكْلَ مَالَ هَذَا. And he comes and he abused this person and he spilled the blood of that person and he took the money of that person. Now he has to give up of his hasanat, of his good deeds, and they go on the account of the one who was mazloom, of the one who was wronged. The person therefore becomes bankrupt. We don't say to ourselves, I'm putting all of my hope in these things, these a'mal, but then I would destroy the planet, but I still have these good deeds. No, the woman, of course, she's praying and she's fasting and she's giving charity, but she's harming her neighbor. You see what it means to harm your neighbor? One of the worst things in life for a person is insecurity. When you move to a home, one of the first things you think about are your neighbors. Are they good neighbors? Because it's very hard living with bad neighbors. Living with neighbors who play loud music, or who are drug dealers, or who are violent, and who swear at you and your children. It's very, very hard. You see, your neighbors are extremely important. And now the rights of the neighbors is another topic. But just on this point about harming your neighbors has an effect. So what if you are praying and everything, but you're harming your neighbors with your lisaniha, with the tongue. You're spreading lies, gossip, right? You're backbiting, you're slandering. Now that affects not just the neighbor, that affects the neighbor and the family of the neighbor. If that neighbor is a woman, it's going to affect the husband and the children and the grandchildren if she's old enough. It's going to affect her mood, her mental health, her emotional health. It's going to affect so many factors because she no longer sees safety in you as her neighbor. So don't see it simply as she's harming her neighbor. It's the big thing that she's harming her neighbor with her tongue. Therefore, whoever believes in Allah on the last day, the Prophet said, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Whoever believes in Allah, let him speak good or remain silent. That means the natural order of the Muslim is silence. If he has something good to say, then he says it, not the other way around. He just says things that there's nothing good in his saying what he's saying. Whereas the other one, she just prays her obligatory prayers and she gives small bits of charity, but she does not harm people. And that one is on a safer footing with Allah. May Allah give all of us tawfiq and forgive us for our errors. Allah wants us to be merciful and forgiving. You know, look at this interesting about the way that taqwa of Allah and good character coalesce together. Ramadan, one of the main ayat I think that many of the imams they recite during the Jum'ah prayers, you hear often, is the ayah in the Quran where Allah says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ أَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَأُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah says, race, compete with one another for the forgiveness of your Lord, and for heaven as wide as the heavens and the earth, which Allah has prepared for who? Muttaqeen, people of taqwa. Why do you fast? كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Taqwa, piety. Okay? Now the next ayah is what? الَّذِينَ, those يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ, they spend their money in charity, in ease and in hardship. Who does that benefit? Other people. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, and they subdue their anger. Who does that benefit? It benefits you of your mental health and benefits other people. It will benefit your children if you subdue your anger. It will benefit your wife if you subdue your anger. And then Allah says, last one, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and they pardon people. Who does that benefit? The one that you're pardoning. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, Allah loves the doers of good. So think about this, how taqwa on the one hand is there. They're competing for taqwa. Now they've passed their test. They've won the race. Allah says they're muttaqeen. Who are they? They have these three things, each one of which are exemplifying goodness of character. Exemplifying goodness of character. And so think therefore about the importance of subduing your anger. The man came and said, Ya Rasulullah, awsini, advise me. The Prophet said, La taghdab, don't get angry. He says, okay, another one, awsini, says, the Prophet said, don't get angry. Third time, again, don't get angry. Because it saves you and it saves you from a lot of problems. And it instills a confidence of a child in a father, knowing that his father has self-restraint. Otherwise, the child is seeing and observing your behavior and your character. He's seeing not just what you say, but how you say it. Not just what you do, but how you do it. Now he's learning this, and you, by the way, as a parent, are the most important living role model for a child. They're taking you as a role model. Like they want to follow you. The one who is teaching them is you. The one they're seeing and observing is you. Now, of course, it puts more of an obligation upon us, right? But just remember that. And sometimes there's silent witnesses. If you're arguing with your wife in the home and you're cursing, who's listening to this? Without speaking, your children. Now, of course, it's going to affect how they consider you as a noble person, as a father, but it's also teaching them. Like if you remember in Macbeth, if you've done Macbeth in school, there's a point of reluctancy that Macbeth has, isn't it? Where he's debating, should I go ahead with killing King Duncan or not? And so Macbeth, this is a long soliloquy, and he says, one of his reasons for not killing the king is, he said, because we teach others how to kill. That's his point. Yeah, he said it's like a poison. He says, return the poison cup to its own lips, meaning we create a culture of killing. We're teaching others to kill us, so we're going to get killed ourselves. Exactly what happened. Right? So because they killed King Duncan, they've created a culture. Like the Prophet said that all of the sins of murder go back to who? Qabil. Isn't it? The one who killed his brother, the son of Adam alayhi salam. Because he created a culture of killing. He taught people how to kill. Right? So therefore, try your best. And I know it's not easy, it's hard. And we don't get it right all the time. It's very hard. We make mistakes, and all of us make mistakes. I understand that. I make mistakes. More than all of you probably. We all make mistakes. But let us at least from now know a different way of doing things. And if we've made mistakes, what do? وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. We apologize. And if people have wronged us, we pardon them. How important it is to pardon people. What we've learned about not being arrogant, not being proud, being humble, would mean, of course, we have to pardon people if they wrong us. In the Quran, Allah gives us an example of, this was revealed concerning Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Mistah ibn Uthatha. Mistah ibn Uthatha was one of the Sahaba, al-Muhajirin, and he was one of the ones who was involved with Abdullah ibn Abi the Munafiq, the hypocrite, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, isn't it? The hypocrite, who was spreading slander around Medina about the Prophet's wife, the great slander against him, that we learn in Surah Nur in the Quran. And he was one who was not spreading, but he was spreading, but he was not the main culprit. He was just involved in it. And he was the cousin of Abu Bakr, and Aisha was Abu Bakr's daughter, and she was the Prophet's wife. She had all these things together. Abu Bakr could not believe that someone like him could spread the slander, and so he made oath. He said, Wallahi la unfiq alayhi shay'an abadan. The man was a poor man, and the one who used to spend money on him, give him money, was Abu Bakr himself, radiallahu anh. Now when he heard the slander and he's involved, he said, by Allah, I would never give this man money ever again. Now we could relate to that. You could think, well, he has a right maybe to say that, because what a disservice, what a betrayal of him and his trust. Allah revealed Quran concerning Abu Bakr's statement. وَلَا يَأْتِ لِأُولِي الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَسَأْتِ أَنْ يُؤْتِ أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. It is not befitting, Allah says, for the people of fadl, grace. It could mean, the ulama, they say, people have more money, like Abu Bakr, people who are better, like Abu Bakr, to make oaths that they will stop giving money and support to those who are ulil qurba, near of kin, it's his cousin, and poor, and migrants, immigrants. He is an immigrant. What does Allah say? وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. Forgive and forbear. Pardon and forbear. Do you not want Allah to forgive your sins? أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Remind yourself always of this. If you want Allah to forgive you, you have to be forgiving. It can't be that we raise our hands to Allah, Allah have mercy on me, but we're not merciful. Oh Allah, forgive me, but we're just failing, refusing to forgive because of pride, arrogance, ego. That we refuse to forgive. No, forgive. Have mercy on people. Just pardon them. Now, of course, there are some conditions. The ulama, they say, if a person is a mischief maker, and by you continuing to pardon him is going to make him go worse, then in that case you don't pardon. So he understands from you not pardoning that he's doing something wrong. But most of the time it's not like this. It's between you and your wife, you and your children, you and your neighbors, you and your family, your brothers and sisters. It's small things. Just pardon and forgive, and do it with the intention that Allah would forgive you and Allah would have mercy upon you. And this is a very important component of having a good character. Forgive to be forgiven, and showing mercy in our character. Now we are on the final section, which is a discussion on the prophetic character, the best character. Allah in the Quran, He says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. So we speak about character, good character, and Allah says you are on an exalted character, a great exalted character. And the Prophet's wife Aisha said, مَا كَانَ أَحَدًا أَحْسَنَ خُلُقًا مِنْ رَسُولِ. There was nobody who had a better character than the Prophet. He had the best character, and he showed people the best of conduct. And we're going to go over, inshallah, a few of these beautiful attributes. Number one is how he was with children. We already mentioned the example of the young girl that climbed on the Prophet's back, and the Prophet was praying, and the Prophet was the one who had the most khushu in salah, but he taught us the importance about giving children a sense of value. The young girl didn't understand anything except she wanted comfort, and the Prophet gave her that comfort, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would love children. He loved children. He would get the children of Medina to line up and race, and he would give gifts, sweets to young children. He would chase Hassan and Hussein around the masjid in Medina, his grandchildren. He had Hassan once on his lap. He said, Allahumma inni uhibbuhu fa'hibbahu. Allahumma inni uhibbu fa'hibbahu. Oh Allah, I love him, so you love him. He had Usama bin Zayd and Hassan once on his lap, both laps. He said, what did he say? Allahumma arhamhuma fa inni arhamuhuma. Oh Allah, have mercy on these two because I have mercy on these two. He loved children. He would kiss his children, his own daughter, Allah Akbar, Fatima. And by the way, look at this, so amazing, amazing. This is a good point against those who attack the character of the Prophet's wife, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. Really good point. Almost all of the hadith about the fadail of Fatima bint Muhammad come from Aisha radiallahu anha. Almost all of them. Hadith speaking about the virtue of the Ahlul Bayt come from who? Aisha radiallahu anha. So it's not, she can't be the one that is scheming. She's the one who's telling us this is the virtue of the Prophet's family. And she informed us that Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha, when the Prophet would visit her in her home, قام, he would stand up. وَأَخَذَ بِيَدِهَا, and take her by the hand and kiss her on the forehead. وَأَجْلَسَهَا فِي مَكَانِهِ, and he would sit her down where he was sitting. Honor, honor. We don't believe in anything about honor killings or honor abuse. All of this is against Islam. But we do believe in honor. And think about the way he was honoring her, Allahu Akbar. And when she would go and see him, when he would see her, she would get up and take him by the hand and kiss him and put him down where she was sitting. Whenever he would go past the home of his wife, of his children, of Fatima, he would say, As-salah, as-salah, ya ahl al-bayt, as-salah, as-salah. And his wives, As-salah, as-salah, O family of the household, ya ahl al-bayt. And so in the way that he dealt with children, look at him. Anas bin Malik had a young brother, Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu. And the young brother of the Prophet gave him the nickname of Abu Umair. And Abu Umair had a sparrow he used to play with, a toy, a sparrow. And the sparrow died, and the Prophet knew the sparrow had died. He knew that. And Anas bin Malik said, whenever the Prophet would come and see me, he would always say to my brother, Ya Abu Umair, ma fa'al al-nughayr. Abu Umair, what has happened with your sparrow? What's up with your sparrow? Meaning just to engage with the child. I mean, that's all people want. You just engage with him. This young boy, Abu Umair, had no knowledge of the prophetic mission. I mean, really, he was out there to save humanity, and all he was concerned about was his small toy. So never deny the child that comfort that they find in the small things that they are interested in. Always show interest in what the child is interested in. You see, it's beautiful. You give us people a sense of honor and a sense of, a sense of worthiness that they see in you. There are, of course, many. There's a beautiful narration from Khalid radiallahu ta'ala anha. She was a small girl. And she said, my memory of the Prophet, she said, my father went to the Prophet, he took me with him. And she said, I was wearing a yellow dress. And she said, I went and I sat down with my father, who was sitting with the Prophet, and the Prophet said to her, when the Prophet saw her wearing that yellow dress, the Prophet said to her, Sana, Sana. Sana, Sana. Now Sana in Ethiopian, I think even in Swahili today, it means good, isn't it, Sheikh? It means good. Sana, Sana. And so the Prophet, and she was Ethiopian, and so the Prophet was engaging with her in a language that she could understand. And the Prophet would do this. He would speak to people sometimes in the language that they understood, to engage with them, to show this is a beautiful nature of Islam. They have all races, all tribes and everything. And this is not for the reason of any antagonism, this is for ta'arafu. So you would recognize one another. In akramakum indallahi atqakum, and the most noble of you in the eyes of Allah, those who have the most taqwa out of all of you. Anyway, she sat down and the Prophet had a ring, and she began to play with the Prophet's ring. And the father said to her, stop doing that. And the Prophet said to the father, da'ha, leave her. Let her play with the ring. Let it be, let it be. Meaning not to be overtly authoritarian, oh so strict, following kind of protocols and these things. No, let it be, let people live the way it's beautiful, And then there are other examples of what's her name? I forgot. One Sahabi, she was again a small girl. This is her memory of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And she said that, I remember the Prophet passed by me and he sprinkled water on my face. Sprinkled water on my face. And that's her memory. So you see these small examples of merriment. I have a daughter, Maryam, she was 3, and when I learned this hadith, I did that. I was making wudu, I had water, and in the bathroom, and I just sprinkled the water on her face. And she found it so funny, and so beautiful. She kept saying to me, Papa, do it again, yeah? Papa, do it again, yeah? Papa, do it again, And it's just like, and I think that's a memory that would stick with her. I think like it stuck for this young Sahabi, because it's something out of the norm. You see, I mean, don't flood your entire bathroom, but you get the point, isn't it? Like a small moment of merriment, of enjoyment between a child and a father, between a child and a father. It's very, very beautiful to do this. So I think that's something for us to take into consideration about the way that our Prophet was with children. Now there's many things we can say for that. The Prophet used to mix with his companions, joke and play with their children, and put them in a lap. We mentioned the narration for that. And then you have how the Prophet was with slaves, and poor people, and rich people alike. You see, prophets are not always with those who are wealthy and those who are powerful, like nobility. But prophets are with those who live on the margins of human society, on the edge of society. There was a man who used to come into Medina from outside Medina, a very poor man. And he used to come into Medina with small bits of stuff like cheese, bits of cheese, and small simple gifts to give the Prophet ﷺ. And others are coming with big gifts, and he just used to bring us small bits of cheese and small things. And he used to lay his mat on the floor and he used to sell a few things. And once the Prophet came from behind him, and the Prophet put his hand around his face like that, covered his eyes. And the Prophet then said, Man yashtari hadha al-abd? Who can buy this slave, this servant? And the man turns around and he smelt the hand, and he knew it was the Prophet ﷺ. And then the man says, Idan tajiduni kasida, Ya Rasulullah, then I would be cheap. I would be cheap. Merchandise, Ya Rasulullah, I'd be cheap. If I go on sale, I wouldn't make any money for anyone. And the Prophet then said, Walakin indallahi lasta bikasid. But with Allah you're not cheap. But with Allah you're not cheap. You see what the Prophet of Allah was doing? He was transforming his society and transforming the way that you perceive others in society. That you will not see poverty as an indication of a person's lack of piety, for example. You will not see that. One of the things, by the way, that we learn about, again, the story of the 2 men in the garden is that kathratul mal la tadul ala ridullah. Having lots of money does not indicate by itself Allah is pleased with you. Wa anna qillatul mal la tadul. That having less money does not point to the sakhat of Allah, anger of Allah upon a person. You see. We learned this from the example of the 2 men who had the man who had the 2 gardens in Surah Al-Kahf, and the man who didn't have any gardens in Surah Al-Kahf. You see. So there was one companion called Julaybi radiallahu anhu. I think some of you might, who knows about Julaybi radiallahu anhu? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you. Lots of you. I'll just say it again. And I want us to reflect upon a few things today, inshallah, with the story of Julaybi radiallahu anhu. We don't know anything about Julaybi. We don't know really who he was. We don't know the tribe he belonged to. We don't know his parents' names. We don't know if he had any brothers and sisters. Nothing about Julaybib. We do know a few things, however, in a few narrations. One, we know he was unmarried, and the Prophet ﷺ approached him, sat with him, asked him about himself and his life. Just for a moment, think about this, about what it means for a person to sit with somebody and ask them about their life. Do you notice in masajid, sometimes we tend to stand or sit in the same spot in the masjid, like we like to sit in that place. And other people like to sit in their own places. You might notice, perhaps on the day of Eid is a good indicator. Eid comes, if you're in the masjid, if you're praying in the masjid, Eid Salah finishes, people get up and they greet each other. Who do you go and greet? The ones you know, isn't it? Your best friends, the ones you know in the masjid. You might notice there are some people in the masjid, they don't have anybody to greet on Eid. They get up and they're out of the masjid. Maybe they don't have family. Maybe they don't have any friends. I notice this a lot, almost every day in the masjid. I notice there are some people that sit in the masjid and no one gives, and they don't give salam to anyone. They just sit there alone. Do something. The next time you see somebody like that in the masjid, go to that person first and shake their hands and ask them about their life and tell them something nice, like they're looking very good, or they're wearing beautiful clothes, or ask them how their health is. Ask them, tell them something nice. Not the ones that you always ask, like you would always ask them anyway, the ones you know. I mean, don't stop asking your friends the same questions, but I'm saying the ones that you don't approach. The ones who are by themselves, the ones who are loners. Ask those people, comfort those people, be with those people. And Julaybib was like that because he was rajulun damim. He did not look very nice. And Sahaba, they were new to Islam. Many of them were new to Islam. They kept their distance from him. They didn't like the way he looked. And the Prophet married him off. And that's another story. But I'm not going to focus on, I want to focus on another one. In Sahih Muslim, the hadith, the Prophet went with an expedition with Sahaba, they came back, and the Prophet says to his companions, هَلْ تَفْقِدُونَ مِنْ أَحَدٍ? Are you missing anybody? And they said, نَعَمْ فُلَانْ وَفُلَانْ وَفُلَانْ. We missed this and that person. He asked second time, are you missing anybody? They said, yeah, we missed this and that person. He asked the third time, are you missing anybody? They said, no. Either he's martyred or taken prisoner or he's back with us. We don't know nobody else. And the Prophet then said, وَلَكِنِّي أَفْقِدُ جُلَيْبِيبٍ. I miss Julaybib. Go and find him. So Sahaba, they went off to try and see where he is, and they found him. And he had killed 7, then he was killed himself, martyred himself. And the Prophet was brought, and the Prophet came, and the Prophet came to his body. And the Prophet said 3 times, هَذَا مِنِّي وَأَنَا مِنْهُ هَذَا مِنِّي وَأَنَا مِنْهُ هَذَا مِنِّي وَأَنَا مِنْهُ. Now just imagine how Sahaba would have felt. This man is from me and I am from him. 3 times, Allahu Akbar. The Prophet is saying, the man that you used to run away from, he's from me and I am from him. You see, now it doesn't end there. Because the narrator then says, فَوَضَهُ عَلَى سَاعِدَيْهِ وَلَيْسَ لَهُ سَرِيرٌ إِلَّا سَاعِدًا بِسَلَامٍ. That he placed Julaybib in his arms. And the narrator says, Julaybib had no pillow on that day except the arms of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet verbalized it and the Prophet actualized it, physically actualized it. And these are examples of the way in which the Prophet was with those who were not considered very important by others, and the Prophet of Allah gave them a sense of importance. He was not harsh, he was not severe, he was not selfish. The Prophet of Allah was أجود الناس fi Ramadan. Also the narration by Anas most generous person in the month of Ramadan, and the most generous person. Our Prophet gave time to people. Sometimes all people want is time. You know, one of his young companions, Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anh, was once, they were coming from an expedition and they were on their camels. And Jabir bin Abdullah was a young man, but he was at the back of the whole line, right at the back. And so the Prophet he went and he rode at the back and said to Jabir, "What is up with you? Why are you so slow on your camel?" And Jabir said, "It's because I have a very slow camel, very slow, and it's not moving very fast." And Jabir had a stick. The Prophet said, "Nawilni hadil asa, give this stick to me." The Prophet took the stick and he kind of patted the camel, and the camel came to life. And it began to rush ahead of everybody else. The camel came to life, And Sahaba are amazed and they said, "How did this happen? What's happened?" And the Prophet, and Jabir is saying, "Asabatu barakah, asabatu barakah." Blessing has come on this camel. And then the camel, and then later on in the day, the Prophet caught up with him, and the Prophet says to Jabir, he says, "How's your camel?" And he says, "Wonderful." And the Prophet said, "Sell the camel to me. Bi'nihi. Sell the camel to me." Jabir in his mind is thinking, "Why would I want to sell the camel? I need the camel, and now it's wonderful, this camel is moving very fast. No need to sell it." But Jabir can't say that. So he's saying, "No, Ya Rasulullah, you take it, you can't sell the money." And the Prophet is saying, "No, sell it to me, sell it to me. I'll give you money for it." And then Jabir said, okay, Ya Rasulullah. Okay, said, "How much would you give for it?" And the Prophet says, "Bidirhamin, 1 dirham," which is like nothing. And then Jabir thinks, "No, come on, Ya Rasulullah, is it worth more than 1?" He said, "Okay, bidirhamain, with 2 dirhams then." Then Jabir is fighting his corner, and he's saying, "No, come on." And then it's going more and more and more, until it reaches half an ounce of gold. And then Jabir realizes he has a debt to pay of half an ounce of gold. And then he says, "Okay, let's just settle on that then." But then he says, "Ya Rasulullah, allow me to ride the camel back to Medina, and then tomorrow we will transfer." And the Prophet said, "That's fine." And the Prophet, when they almost arrived in Medina, Jabir went very fast with his camel. And the Prophet says to Jabir, "What is up? What's the hurry? What's the rush?" And Jabir says, "I just got married, Ya Rasulullah." And the Prophet says, "Who did you marry? Bikran am thayyiban? Did you marry a young girl or did you marry an older woman?" He said, and Jabir was young. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, as you know, my mother died, and I have sisters. And so I wanted to marry somebody who is mature enough to be like a mother for my sisters." And the Prophet cried. The Prophet cried. Because he was so impressed by the maturity of Jabir. And then Jabir says, on the way back, the Prophet kept saying to him more than 25 times, "Allah maghfir li Jabir, oh Allah maghfir li Jabir. Oh Allah, forgive Jabir, forgive Jabir," praying for him. When Jabir goes back home, he tells his wife the whole drama of what had happened with his camel. And then he's still feeling, "Well, I shouldn't have sold the camel because I have a wife and I need a camel." And his wife is saying, "No, Jabir, because this is the Prophet ﷺ, if he's what is, blessing is going to come from it." So he goes the next day out with his camel, to give the Prophet ﷺ and get that half an ounce of gold. And he finds Bilal radiallahu anhu. Bilal has the money, the parcel. And Jabir realizes that there's half an ounce of gold and there's more, ziyada, extra money. Jabir is really excited, thinking, "Wow, this is amazing. There's more money. I can maybe buy another camel or something." And then Jabir found the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, "Ya Rasulullah, jazakallah khair for the money and the extra money." And the Prophet says to him, he said to him, "Jabir, I was never going to take your camel from you. I just saw you right at the back. and I wanted to spend some time with you, just to talk with you. He said, Ya Jabir, Innal Jamal, indeed the camel and the money are both for you, Jabir. The money and the camel are both for you, Jabir. And this is inspiring confidence in a young man. We have a lot of young people, sadly, because of the Islamic phobic tendencies and so many other things, it's very easy for people to lose faith, to lose trust, to lose hope. Our own children, for example. Always try and inspire your children with hope, giving them a sense of hope, showing them that you're actually more than what exists outside of them. And I think that's a very beautiful example for us. I'll end inshallah on one example. And there's too many examples of the Prophet's greatness in his character. I've just tried to isolate a few things I think are quite important for us. And this is an example of, again, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the head of the Munafiqeen in Medina. You know, in the Battle of Badr, there were 70 mushrikeen, around 70 were captured as prisoners of war. And one of them was the Prophet's own uncle Hamza, radiallahu anhu. No, sorry, Abbas, my mistake, Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib, radiallahu anhu. And the Prophet really loved his uncle, he really loved his uncle. And the Prophet went to see Abbas. And he saw him as a prisoner, and the Prophet wanted to release him. Sahaba are saying, no, Ya Rasulullah, he's an enemy of Allah and everything. And when the Prophet saw him, he didn't have an upper garment, Abbas. And the Prophet then said to his companions, who could lend this man a garment to wear? Now the only one, and Abbas was very broad shoulders, very big, wide. And the only one who was like him was Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, leader of the hypocrites in Medina. And he came along with his garment. And this is before, by the way, before the slander and everything, before Battle of Uhud, when he betrayed everyone. Before that, he gave his garment for Abbas. He says, let him wear this, Ya Rasulullah. He gave it. Now, much years later, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul had a son called Abdullah also. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. And the Abdullah ibn Abdullah was a great Sahabi, loyal to the Prophet ﷺ, loyal to Islam, Muslims, everything, not like his father. And so when the father died, hypocrite died, Abdullah ibn Abdullah, the young man, went to the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, as you know, my father has died. And I don't have a shroud to bury him in. You know what the Prophet did? He took off his own cloak and said, bury your father in this. Remembering the favor that he gave to Abbas on that day when Abbas had no shirt. And this is really, really beautiful, because so many of the munafiqeen came back into Islam that day when they saw that behavior from the Prophet ﷺ of justice, of kindness, of forgiveness. And all of these are important attributes for us to have as Muslims. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of those, Allahumma anfa'na ma 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Oh Allah, make us of those who 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Teach us what will benefit us. And benefit us with the things that we know. And may Allah make our knowledge a hujjah for us, not against us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And may this be, inshallah, things for us to practice upon and teach others about also. And I ask Allah for myself and for all of you, that Allah gives us and inspires us with the best of character. That we treat our mothers, our fathers, our children, our neighbors, our wives and husbands with the best of character, the best of manners, and the best of speech. And that when we look at ourselves in the mirror, you look at yourself in the mirror, you would say, Allahumma ahsin khuluqi kama ahsanta khalqi. Oh Allah, make my character beautiful and excellent the way that you've made my form excellent. That you do not focus and over-focus on the self. Although Allah is Jameel, Yuhibbul Jamal, Allah is beautiful, loves what is beautiful. Even outward beauty, Allah loves that. We should not undermine that. Beautiful smell, beautiful clothing, Allah loves that. But realize that's not the main focus. The main focus is on the heart. And as we approach Ramadan, may Allah make Ramadan a month of transformation for all of us, a month of forgiveness for all of us. And again, Jazakumullahu khairan for being all with us today, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think there may be some time for Q&A. I think they said that. I don't know what time we have left. Yeah, I think there's some time. So if anybody has any questions, then I can try and answer them, inshallah. Yeah.
You mentioned the example of a woman who gave charity. The woman who gives praise and gives charity to her neighbours, she's in the hellfire. You mentioned another example. I didn't get a chance to write it down. What was it again?
The other woman, إن فلانة تصلي المكتوبة. The woman who prays her 5 daily obligatory prayers. She does her obligations. And she gives sadaqah in small amounts. ولكن لا تؤذي جيرانها بلسانها. But she does not harm her neighbors with her tongue. And the Prophet said here, min Ahl Jannah. So it's important, again, important hadith for us.
We don't really personalize stuff. We're still talking about the different evidences and discussing them. And sometimes it leaves a bad taste, like the end of the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, I'm doing what I'm doing and you're doing.
Yes.
Where it leaves a bitter taste. Is that under the same condition that harming other people with your life? Is that
I couldn't hear what you said, sorry.
The woman,
Oh yes, yes.
the woman used to harm other people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So when we go to a religious, not really a debate, but a religious argument or discussion, it leaves a bitter taste.
Alaikum. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just now. Yeah, yes. I think the best thing is like in line with the Prophet's hadith. If you believe in Allah on the last day, then speak good or remain silent. So some people, for example, discussing Islam becomes like discussing football, discussing sports, and everybody wants to have an opinion about Islam, about something. They all feel. On the one hand, it's quite positive because it shows that their identity is connected to Islam, but there's too many dangers and pitfalls in this. Because in the things that we say, we could attribute a lie against Allah, against the deen. We could violate something that Allah made sacred and sanctified, We could make istihza, we could make a fun of something that Allah holds inviolable and sanctified. And all of these are very, very perilous. Major sins or disbelief in sometimes, So I think the best thing, if you have a person like that, either you would leave the gathering. Allah in the Quran encourages us to move away, to leave, and then come back when the discussion has changed. We could have it as an option. Or you could advise with politeness that it's, or just change the topic. Mention football instead, as opposed to deen. It's better for the person. You mention football rather than they end up in so many sins by saying so many wrong things about Islam. Or, with politeness and the best of manners, you would say, I think it's better that we don't speak about this until we know about this. Until we know and we have some knowledge, or maybe we can say something about this. That's what I would advise, and Allah knows best. Yeah. It's important because on the one hand, you don't want to break your relationship with your friends. I'm not saying that. But you realize, of course, your loyalty to Allah is more than your loyalty to your friend. And so your obligation, therefore, is to honor what Allah made sacred and sanctified. And first of all, before your friendship, is going to be the deen of Allah. So your job should be to preserve that sanctity, Inshallah. Okay. Sheikh, you want to say something?
Not at all. I just want to say I can help you with some questions.
Okay. Okay.
You want to speak Arabic, English.
Inshallah. Any other questions? Because we have the Sheikh with us also. I think everyone is taban. Oh, here we have.
Just one point I was thinking about. As a Muslim, you're supposed to idfa' billadhi hiya ahsan sayyi'ah.
Yes, yeah.
Tell the evil with the good. Sometimes I struggle personally. When people get abusive with you, and sometimes they get abusive with you, you're thinking in your head, I want to repel the evil with good. At the same time, you're thinking, this person's being abusive to me because I'm a Muslim, because he thinks he can push me around. So it's one of the hard things a person struggles with, maybe just me, is where would you draw the balance between, say for example, repelling the evil with good, or just letting someone just push you around? SubhanAllah, the last 2 months, I've been in situations where I repel evil with good, I'd be patient, and then there's other times where I don't be patient because this person, he thinks he can get away with it because I'm a Muslim. I don't like anybody pushing me around.
Of course.
So it's a very hard kind of. How would you, subhanAllah, differentiate between the circumstances?
Well, we know, Bismillah, we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he never retaliated if it was a personal injury. You see, if it was a personal attack, he never retaliated. But he would retaliate if it was a violation against Allah's hukm, Allah's commands, Then he would feel angry. And so you have this, anger we are allowed. Al-hubba fillah wal-bughda lillah. This is awthaq. This is the firmest bond of iman, is that you love and hate for Allah's sake. Man ahabba fillah wa abghada fillah wa a'ta lillah wa man lillah faqad istaqbala al-iman. Whoever loves and hates for Allah, gives and withholds for Allah, is complete of his iman. So it's from iman that you would hate people to attack Islam. You would hate people's insults against Islam. That's normal. That's a natural feeling. But you have a few things to consider. One is da'wah, which you are engaged in. And when you're calling, of course, Allah says, ud'u Allah, ud'u, call to Allah, bil hikmati wal maw'idhati al hasana wa jadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Billati hiya ahsan, meaning argue with them in ways that are best and excellent, you see. Now there's sometimes, if a person is arrogant, it means he doesn't want to listen to what you're saying, perhaps. He's just there to make a mockery of you, make fun of you. It's much better to leave the discussion, to leave it, perhaps resume it at another time. You see, because what's going to happen is just going to be your ego against his ego. And when two egos flare up, or at least what he sees of your ego, I'm not saying you're egoistic, but what he sees of your ego, it's like fire. It's like fire. So either, there's no rule to this because you're the one that's engaged in the da'wah and you meet people and different people. If you see a person who is perhaps willing to listen to you, like look at the example of Mus'ab ibn Umair when he went to Medina, Yathrib, it's the same thing. So people are angry and they're saying bad things, and he said, look, if you like what I say, listen. If you don't like, then just go. That's it. And he gave them a very soft word, nice word, to make them feel cooler in themselves. And then they were prepared to listen to him, you see. So I think that sometimes if it's like people get flared up, if it's politicized discussion, a lot of the time, isn't it? If it's politicized, then they have loyalties. They take loyalties. They want to stand by their so-called Western values, and they see us as backwards and uncivilized, whatever. It's not easy, The key thing, like we discussed the other day, was just to try and revert the discussion back to Allah, belief in Allah. Even in this, if they're obnoxious and arrogant, whatever, you can try and resume discussion on another day, because you can't fight, and you're doing the right thing, because if you do idfa billati hiya ahsan, then there's a consequence. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَلِيمٌ. It would be as if you're mutual friends, If it, yeah, that's it. وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا لِلَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. I was so we were speaking about Rwanda. This ayah, Mufti Saleh of Rwanda, 1994, he mentioned this ayah. So, 1994, there was a genocide in Rwanda. In 90 days, up to 1 million people were not just killed, massacred, they were butchered to death with machetes. In 90 days.
Muslims?
Christians.
Muslim. Who killed the other?
Christians killing Christians. 2 tribes, Qaba'il, Hutus and Tutsis. Okay? Small difference between them. One is darker skin, one is lighter skin, one is tall, one is a bit chubbier, One has different colored hair, not different style hair. And this is colonialism. And so the Belgians used to rule Rwanda. And the Belgians always favored the lighter skinned ones. Like they always do. And they made the lighter skinned get better jobs, better houses, better money, better schools for the lighter skinned ones. And the darker skinned ones, which were the Hutus, were the ones who were inferior. Now, in April 1994, the plane carrying the 2 presidents of Rwanda and Burundi crashed. 2 presidents were killed in one day. Now what happened is that the Hutus felt like taking revenge. And that's all it was, revenge against the Tutsis. Over 90 days, up to 1 million people were killed. Those numbers are even more in ratio to the Holocaust. This is neighbors killing neighbors, teacher killing student, priest killing his congregation, husband killing wife. Imagine this insanity. لا يدري القاتل فيما قتل ولا المقتول فيما قتل. Like the Prophet said, the one who kills will not know why he's being killed, one is killing. This is what happened. Now the Muslims were about 6-7% of that country. The majority is Roman Catholic. Now, what are they supposed to do? You have a choice. Either you are a perpetrator, you do whatever everybody else is doing, or you're a victim, you should not be a victim, or you're a bystander, you just watch the show as a spectator, or you're a rescuer. Mufti Saleh mentioned this ayah. The Muslims in Rwanda, they did the most amazing thing, beautiful thing. The masajid, they opened the doors. So when the Tutsis are running away, they came inside the masjid. You see, and the Muslim women, they gave them headscarves to pretend they're Muslims. And the men gave them the tasbih, rosary beads, to pretend they're Muslims. And to just say Allah, Allah, and just say something on the prayer mat, you see, to disguise them as Muslims. And this happened in Kigali, Mabari, Lake Mugesera. The Muslims, Lake Mugesera, the Hutus used to kill the Tutsis and then dump their bodies in the lake. The Muslims in the night time would take their canoes and row in the night to try and find bodies of the dead Tutsis. And when the people would ask, why are you doing this? You're going to get killed. They said, because our faith teaches us to save life. We're trying to save life. They would say the same thing like Allah وَاتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَ قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. Adam had 2 sons. One killed the other. We're 2 tribes. And one is killing the other one. They were using Quran to make sense of their thing. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, Allah, from the signs of Allah, Allah has made us شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنْ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ يَتْقَاكُمْ. Tribes, not so we hate each other, so that we can recognize each other. And the best of you, most honorable, are those who have the most taqwa out of you. They were using these examples, and had such an amazing effect. Amazing effect. Just go back, type on Google 1994. You'll see the newspaper reports, the conversion rates to Islam. Now I think the Muslims are about 15% of that country. They skyrocketed. Because the Catholics, they think the only ones who saved us were the Muslims. There must be something good in their religion if they saved us. And the Christian nuns were arrested for war crimes because they used to barricade the walls of the monasteries. Gates, they used to barricade so that no one could escape. And then set fire to the churches where they're hiding. And the Rwandans, the Hutus, never used to come to the masjid. They used to believe inside the masjid are like demons and devils and ghosts. And they used to stereotype us until they had no choice. They had to come because their life was at risk and their life was saved. Mufti Saleh mentioned this ayah. He said, we were in the position وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍ عَظِيمٍ. He says this was our challenge, to have sabr. Because you cannot reconcile between people unless you have sabr. I'll tell you another thing, amazing thing. Genocide ended. The new president of Rwanda, you know what he said? He said God sent the Muslims to Rwanda to teach other Rwandans how to live. How to live as human beings. So because the Muslims did something that was really good in that time. You know what else the Muslims did? Look at this amazing intelligence, Allah Akbar. The genocide finished, okay? Now, if you lose 1 million people in a society in 90 days, it's not a joke. You've lost something else. You see, if the fathers are going out in the morning and killing people, the women, the wives, they know what their husbands are doing. Because they used to give them meat dishes for breakfast, so they have enough energy, to carry on killing. The wives, therefore, they were involved, they were implicit in this. So you know what the Muslims did? Allah Akbar. In the fields of Rwanda, they made small huts, like small Islamic, there were Islamic centers, they were small huts for the purpose of teaching young girls how to be mothers. For what? For the next generation of people. And I thought, when I read this, I thought, this is just so unbelievable. Because if 1 million people have been killed in society, society has lost something else. It's lost its femininity. It's lost women. Women have not learned how to be mothers, or have forgotten how to be mothers. And so for the next generation, young girls, children, they have to learn how to be mothers, how to be women, about re-inculcating in society a sense of mercy and rifq and compassion amongst children. And I thought this was an amazing achievement, So I think to be able to reconcile, like you said, it's not an easy thing. But just remember the Muslims of Rwanda, that'll give you some inspiration. I was a sheikh. In England we have a Muslim woman called Lauren Booth. Lauren Booth is the sister-in-law of Tony Blair, ex-Prime Minister. She became Muslim. Sister Lauren Booth. And so a few years ago I was doing a talk with Sister Lauren Booth and some other speakers, and the event was about Islam in Africa. And so I had just been learning about the genocide in Rwanda. I spoke about this Rwanda genocide. And then she spoke after me. She said to the audience, it's very interesting, Brother Uthman spoke about Rwanda today. She said, I'll tell you why. She said last week or the week before, I was giving a talk on Islam in Africa, and after my talk, these two young ladies came to me with hijab. They said, Sister Lauren, Jazakallah khair for your very interesting talk on Islam in Africa. We are sisters from Rwanda, And we have the most amazing story to tell the world, but no one wants to hear it. So it is true. It's true. The more I think about it, I think it's so true. I don't think the Muslims have made a greater achievement in the last 50 years than what they did in that one small country of Rwanda in those 90 days, in saving the lives of so many Christians. It's a big testament to the greatness of Islam. And so I thought I'd mention that. So if there are no other questions, we can inshallah round it up here inshallah. Jazakallah khair again to everyone. Jazakallah khair Shaykh. Jazakallah khair Masjid. Jazakallah khair.